Hey, hello, and welcome to day 0 of building an open source AI-powered knowledge management system, or RAGBot. So what am I doing? I'm taking this course, right? I love this course. I'm taking it for the 3rd time. I'm actually helping the teachers this time. Hugo and Stefan, great guys. Check it out. And as part of the course, we are building these pipelines off the back of the workshops that kind of take in the transcripts and then punch out these wikis for the students to basically recap the workshops. So we already had that in place. I thought as part of the course I wanted to do something that was built in public. I wanted to do something with an open source model. So I thought that I would try to build this kind of AI powered open source knowledge management graph and interface for the students. I'm also building this startup RA. It is a local knowledge management system. So I'm really interested in, at the moment I'm just using the major vendor APIs, and I would love to integrate an open source, open weights model. And so yeah, that's kind of a nice parallel there. But now we're focusing on this knowledge management graph for the course and for the students. So let's just have a quick look at the project overview here. Okay, so as part of the course, we get credits. I've actually taken so many courses now that I have $2,500. I got a shitload of modal credits. I'll explain what modal is in a little bit. I've never used the credits. I've never actually deployed an open source model, and so I really want to do that. I'm going to use this as an excuse to do it now and actually use some of those credits. So we're going to download Quen weights from Hugging Face. Decided to do the Quen 4B model, the no-think model. I'll explain that decision in a second. Step 2 is we're going to deploy the VLM service with the A10G GPU. And then we're going to, so there's a guy, Ben, who came in and gave a guest lecture from Modal. He's fantastic. He's just built and shared an open source RAG-bot that's voice. Could be a little bit ambitious for us to try and implement voice in this particular project, but maybe we'll get there, give it a crack. But I want to copy his architecture. He used Quen, I think, and ChromaDB. ChromaDB is also a sponsor of the course. So it's going to be good to use ChromaDB as the back-end knowledge base for the workshops and for the embeddings. And so we'll copy that system without the voice at the start, and then build some simple chat interface. I have a little bit of experience with Next.js, so that'll probably be the way we go with the interface, but we'll see, this might change. Okay, so back to just this context thing here. Just a disclaimer, like, I don't have a background in software engineering, so it could be a little brutal if you're watching this and you're a software engineer. I'm a beginner, so I'm leaning really heavily on these coding agents. I'm trying to do things properly. It's part of the reason I'm building in public here. It's forcing me to understand what I'm doing and not just produce slop. I've done a lot of slop. So yeah, I'm leaning heavily on these coding agents. I'm going to show in, like, I was going to jump straight into day 1 and download the weights straight away, but I just want to do day 0, which is just to show my setup, how I do things. It could be helpful for some people, I don't know. If you are really comfortable with your coding environment and you don't really like leaning too heavily on these coding agents, you might want to skip. I do apologize. So, what else to share here? Yeah, I also just, the models that are coming out of China are so good. I really want to use them. I'm going to open source this, so if anybody wants to follow along or dupe it, you're more than welcome to. So let me jump straight into day 0. I am raw dogging this at the moment. This is non-rehearsed, as you may have noticed. Okay, so project setup. What is going to be the best way for me to share this? Okay, so basically, as I said, I'm relying heavily on the coding agents. Whenever I start a new project, this just changes from time to time as I see how other people are doing things. I'm usually having 3 different agents pointed at the same repo. So I'll have Claude Code, I'll have Codex, and then at the moment I'll also have, so I have 2 screens, and so this will be my setup cursor with the 2 pane situation. And then in my other window, I'll have this, which is Droid. Droid is like a coding harness, coding agent. It's really good. I hated it at first. I signed up to every AI. They're like I don't know how you explain them. They do a lot of AI related content and testing and fantastic tutorials, and they had a partnership with Droid. Droid gave away like 80 million tokens, so I've just been trying to churn through those tokens, but now I think that I might use this. I'm not sure. The trick with Droid is like Codex and Claude here are within this repo. I usually have to sit Droid outside of the repository and point it in, otherwise it seems to like gobble up too much context and just get screwed. So anyway, if anybody has any tips for that and Droid, please let me know. So that's my setup, and then I'll also just have literally like a Google document as my scratchpad. Now this is how I set up the project this time. Again, this changes every time. I have like a context document here similar to like claude.md, but because I'm using 3 different agents, it's just like the most compressed representation of my thinking. Whenever I'm creating a document with one of these coding agents, I always find that I just have to keep saying to it, more simple, don't fucking understand, make it more simple. So we get down to this like condensed context document. That's just, the highest level. What am I doing? What's the plan? This is how you need to work. These are the documents you need to read before you start working. And then here in the docs folder, I'll have like a template. Well, actually, let me explain this first. I'll have agent kickstart. So this is just what I copy and paste into each of the agents before I start working. It tells them to read the context document, to read the project overview, which I'll explain next, and to create a branch. Always start working on a NuGet branch. Never on main. Always create a PRD. Okay, so I put in this kickstart, it reads, it gobbles up all the context that it needs to have in context, and then it'll come back to me, and then I'll say like only proceed after completing the above checklist, and I actually usually add another bit here that says confirm with me before you start doing any work. So I'll have an idea for a feature. The idea here is actually like that each step in the overview will create a PRD for that. So this is the project overview. This is like what I've gone back and forth on with Claude and Codex and Droid. I spent many hours doing this. I like to like spend more time planning. I found that spending more time planning, simplifying, refining is better for these agents, because the main reason is like I'm a bit of a pleb with software engineering, so I don't fully understand everything, and so I need to go back and forth many times to make sure that I understand what each step in the process is that's being recommended. So this is the plan. We came up with this 5-step plan. I also like to put it into Grok and then go for a walk. The Grok voice mode is really good to hash out the plan. This is the plan that we came up with, and the idea here is that we're going to convert each of these steps into PRDs, and then each of these steps in the PRD will hopefully become a day in the project. So back to how I'm engaging with the coding agents. So I'll drop in the kickstart message, which tells it to read the context, yada yada, and then I'll say to it, okay, we're ready to do part 1 or step 1 of the project overview. Step 1 of the project overview is to understand how Modal works. We need to download pip install Hugging Face, and then download the weights locally. And so we'll hash out this plan, and I'll make sure that I understand the plan from top to bottom. I can show you this plan here because I have already done step 1. Actually, I won't go into that now. We'll save that for day 2, or day 1, I should say. Okay, so let me go back to day zilch. Okay, great. So when I started, we set up this project structure that you can see here. You can see it over here. This is just content that I want to share for the build in public situation. Documentation, which includes the kickstart document, project overview, which is the kind of living, breathing steps of the entire process from top to bottom. And then in dev, that's where I have like the actual PRD templates that are being created. This is where the agents are going to create the PRD, and we're going to go back and forth multiple times. for each of the steps. The project plan is what I just talked about. Many hours, multiple models. I find like this is just my take here. I'm using I'm kind of using two different models and a harness, right? So I'm using Claude and I'm using Codex, and Claude Code and Codex, and then in Droid is just a harness, and in Droid I'm mostly using just Codex and 4.5 Sonnet anyway. But I just find having a fresh set of eyes, not to anthropomorphize, is the helpful thing. Even if I was using just 3 instances of Claude Code, even though I know that the different models are better at different things, and I'll lean on different models to do different things, just having the fresh set of eyes, and I think having to explain something in a different way 3 times is helpful, obviously depending on the task. So yeah, let's look at the project overview that we created together. So after going back and forth many times, we whittled it down from like 14 steps to 5 steps, and these are the steps that we just talked about. So I usually, for the template, I'll request that we have a very high level simple game plan, 1 to 5, well not 1 to 5, however many steps there are, and then like a more fleshed out step-by-step checklist. So that's what we've done here. Obviously the first one we're going to flesh out a little bit more because I kind of know what we're doing now with step 1. Step 2, 3, 4, 5, the further down the track they get, the more likely they are to change. So I'm not spending too much time on the individual parts of each of those steps. And so yeah, this is what we came up with. We decided to go with Quen. I originally wanted to try a different model. I wanted to try one of the Zipu models, but I think just going with the 4B model is the best way to go because it's going to fit on the smaller hard drive for modal. And also that's what Ben used in his demonstration, so I can kind of annoy him if I have any questions. So that's most of what I wanted to share for day 0, kind of the setup and how I go about creating these PRDs and the process. And then yeah, I should also include it here. I'll share this repo. So I've also shared here like the dumb questions that I had to ask. What is Hugging Face? I kind of knew what Hugging Face already was, but I've never actually downloaded weights. How does modal work? Like, do they own the GPUs? Spoiler, they don't own the GPUs. They're also renting the GPUs. What's Quen? Is it a reasoning model? No, it's not a reasoning model. Like, can it use tools? And then ChromaDB. So yeah, I'm just asking these really basic, dumb questions that are a little bit embarrassing to share, but it's kind of what you got to do. And that helps me understand the background for the project planning. So thank you for listening. In the next one, day 1, I'm going to talk about actually downloading the weights from Hugging Face and then looking at them. I always wanted to do that, and then uploading to the modal volume, and then actually getting the model running. It's super quick to do that and actually quite cheap. I think it cost me like a couple of bucks. Well, actually it cost me $12 because I kind of screwed up the initial setup, which I'll share. And yeah. I will see you soon.